Some tracks were sold for scrap. Also, one switch at the Y still remains, and the track points were removed quite unexpectedly, I guess. The train at the Omaha Zoo gives visitors rides and tours and even talks about the animals, and passengers even get to experience the train and the sights around the zoo from the train. You see right behind me is Omaha Zoo Railroad Pacific 119. Omaha Zoo Railroad's Union Pacific 119 is a 30-inch gauge replica of the Union Pacific 119, and there is a standard gauge replica of the 119 up in Promontory, Utah, where the two locos met in Promontory in May 1869, and I will get to that part in a moment, but this locomotive was built by Crown Metal Products in 1968 in Wayano, Pennsylvania, and that's the same year Omaha Zoo Railroad started running, and it was the only locomotive on the Omaha Zoo Railroad till a second one came to the Omaha Zoo Railroad in 1974. And this locomotive is a 440 American type, and also the Omaha Zoo Railroad's 119 was built and to resemble the standard gauge replica 119, which is up in Promontory, Utah, where the last spike was driven in May 1869. And oftentimes there they do the reenactments where the last spike gets driven, and as that's when they show you how it's been done since May 1869, and is located at Golden Spike National Historic Site. Also, the Transcontinental Railroad's Union Pacific line started here in Omaha as well, and Central Pacific's line started in Sacramento, California. This replica of 119 was originally painted black, white, and red. It emerged resplendent in a beautiful historical accurate scheme of crimson, maroon, and olive green, with a boiler jacketing of simulated Russia iron and a new stained wood cab replicating one on the original Union Pacific locomotive was also fitted. Also, by 2012, this locomotive was overhauled and the drive wheels were taken to Strasburg, Pennsylvania to be worked on in the Strasburg Railroad shops. And then Omaha Zoo Railroad's Union Pacific 119 returned to service in May 2013 and is once again ran again. 119 hauled 4 cars on Henry Dorley's track normally when it came to the zoo and hauled visitors around, and it appeared that it hauls 5 cars on days it runs, but not actually, but sometimes though. Also, Omaha Zoo's 119 is known to be Omaha Zoo Railroad's crown jewel and one of the zoo's crown jewel, as it is seen on info cards, maps, or before seeing a movie at the IMAX theater as well. What you see right behind me is Feratte Rome 395.104. Feratte Romane 395.104 was built by Cross in Linz, Austria in 1890 and is the 23/60th steam engine built in that order and is a 062T tank engine. This locomotive is named Riva and is a 395 class and is one of 3 sister locomotives built in 1890 for the Mori Arco Riva del Grada tramway, which is located on the southeastern edge of the Austrian Empire at Lake Garda, now Italy. She worked there until 1915 when the rail line was heavily damaged due to the war. She was turned over to the K&K Feldbahn and served on the military railways during World War, and it was stationed at Strige in Galizian, now Ukraine, until 1939, the mid-1930s. At the beginning of World War II, the area was taken over by Russia. In 1939, Germany captured the area and brought Riva to Siebenberg. Then, and part of Hungary renumbered as 395.104 and worked the Magyar Almvac's Hungarian state railways until 1944. By Placer and Thruer of Wiener retirement, Wiener, Austria, with the help of Union Pacific Railroad. Joseph Thruer, president, and Placer and Thruer donated the locomotive to Omaha Zoo in 1974. Union Pacific's Omaha shops rebuilt parts of the locomotive to bring the Riva up to the U.S. operating standards. By 1976, the locomotive was chuffing along, pulling coaches full of delighted passengers once again. Also, the Caile Feratte Romane 395.104 operates at Henry Dorley Zoo and runs on Omaha Zoo's railroad tracks, and also the locomotive hauls 6 cars and a caboose around the zoo. Also, it pulls more than the other. Also, restoration took place in the Union Pacific's Omaha shops. The overhaul consisted of major running gear work, the installation of American brake pipe equipment, and conversion from coal to oil firing. The locomotive was then painted, and missing parts such as headlights and bell were replaced. Also, this locomotive was not just restored at the Union Pacific shops. It was also taken to Mount Pleasant, Iowa to be worked on at Midwest Central Railroad in McMillan Park. Caile Feratte Romane 395.104 entered service at the zoo in 1976 during the annual Family Night Members Day event and has operated almost every year since then. A major multi-year overhaul took place in the early 1990s, and another in 2000 to 2002. During the winter and spring of 2005, the water tanks were replaced, and the air tanks, which were added in 1976 and were moved to a concealed location, returning the engine to a more historically correct appearance. The engine lost its green and black paint scheme and was repainted all dark green. Also, 395.104 is often nicknamed the Austrian because it came from Austria.
Right behind me is Kenefick Station.
Kenefick Station is one of 2 stops for passengers to get on board and get off the train, and this is the Kent Station on the northwest end of the zoo. Although, if you ever came to this zoo in the past, you might notice Kenefick Station changed too much in the past. Also, the original station building was like on the side of where this building is now, and it was a brick wall, and also the platform wasn't very long, and then passengers stopped boarding the train from that building sometime in the 2000s, and then the new Kenefick Station was also the other side of the crossing for boarding the train, and also the gutter was green, and then in 2014 it got torn down, and this station platform is the third one built because of the new exhibit that was built here, and passengers had to only board the train from one station, and then finally this station reopened, and this is the station I always board the train, and I mostly come here to ride the train even on days the train is running. Omaha Station and Omaha Zoo. If you're ever wondering where Omaha Depot is, it is located on the north side of the zoo near Dairy World and just by the Aviary and African Lodge. Also, the Union Pacific Engine House is located next to the platform, and the locomotives even fill up with fuel while passengers board the train from this station, so the steamers can keep their strength up going around the zoo tracks, and also visitors even wait to ride the train, and as they are in line waiting for the train, and sometimes we see peacocks lingering around here before a train comes, and sometimes we're nervous peacocks could get ran over by the train, but they move away from the tracks when the train is approaching. Also, this station is open air and also has no walls, just pillars, and looks like a replica depot with no walls, and it's like Kenefick Depot as well, but a ticket booth for purchasing a ticket to ride the train. Also, it's fun waiting for the train to arrive at whatever station at the zoo.
What you see here is an engine's bell, and it's here on display for ringing at the Omaha Depot here at Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo. And also you can also ring the bell, and it's unknown which engine it came from. That's how it's done. Omaha Zoo Railroad, 301. JLJ. Also, one of the coaches of the train set was Henry Dorley Zoo, the Omaha Zoo Railroad. What you see right behind me is Omaha Zoo Railroad's caboose, Omaha Zoo Railroad 25700. Railroad caboose is not like any of the other cars on the train set, and I believe this caboose was built somewhere in Nebraska, and then been a part of Henry Dorley's train cars. And it also the city even if it does to you. And also, unlike to any other ordinary cabooses, the benches are like they are sticking to the wall. Also, that's where you take your seat. And you're right on the caboose. Right behind me is Omaha Zoo Railroad's coach, part of the train set. I believe this car was one of the earliest coaches at the zoo, that arrived at the zoo. And also, that's all I know. What you see right behind me is Omaha Zoo Railroad 6035.
Omaha Zoo Railroad 6035 was built by Plymouth Locomotive Works in Plymouth, Ohio in 1957 and is the 6035th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a 40-ton diesel locomotive. It was originally built to run on 36-inch gauge rails. Also, it was originally built for the Bethlehem Steel Company in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Then it was acquired by the East Broad Top Railroad in Pennsylvania and was numbered M5A. Later, it was then used at a tie manufacturing plant in Springfield, Missouri and converted to run on 30-inch gauge rails. Then, in the 1980s, it was bought by a private owner near Springfield, Missouri and had it painted blue to resemble Thomas the Tank Engine a bit and had a plastic face on the front. And the locomotive was named Virgie after his wife, who is one of the Omaha Zoo Railroad's founders. And the face may have possibly looked like her. Then in 2008, it was bought by the Omaha Zoo Railroad and moved to Omaha, Nebraska. In 2017, it was repainted in the Chinese red scheme and made it look good as new and had the face taken down. Also, it had some upgrades done on it as well. Today, it is used as a backup locomotive when one of the two steam locomotives are out of service as well, but is mainly used for shunting also.
This is called a spike driver thing that was from Union Pacific. Looks like it was converted, and this is used for putting in new spikes at the zoo's train. And here it is today after it arrived. You could see behind me are a few speeders and carts that they use to maintain their tracks here at the zoo. And their history is unfortunately unknown, but looks like this yellow one is made for standard gauge. And yeah, I think that one right there, actually there's one flatbed. And here's, oh wait, there are actually two more behind this yellow one, and looks like they were both at the appropriate gauge. Okay, you can see behind me is the water tower used for the second steam locomotive the zoo has acquired, and it's small enough to fit through its water tank. The big one is for the bigger steam engine, and yeah, and that's why they use two water towers. You can see right behind me is the Omaha Zoo Union Pacific engine house, and this engine house is where they maintain all their equipment and their locomotives. And also, this is like an original one. I wonder how if it is an original one, I wonder how they even got it here. It would have been awfully difficult to move it here in one piece. Or maybe it was built from scratch is my guess. But yeah, I like how they use this to maintain their equipment. What you see right behind me is the water tower.
This water tower was built new for the Omaha Zoo Railroad, it looks like, and it has been in this spot for a number of years. Mainly today, they use it to fill the water into the original steam locomotive, which was built new for the Omaha Zoo Railroad in 1968.
You could see behind me is two of four of the cars the zoo has had, starting in 2010, and I think it was built around the same time the zoo began. And these are used with the Austrian train. And let me show you the other two. You can see behind me there's one of the other four cars, part of the train that they acquired from the Portland Zoo, it looks like. And yeah, here it is today. It's been here since like 2010. Here's another one of the four cars that they acquired in 2010 from the Portland Zoo, built by this Crown Metal Products. All four of them that I was just showing you, all the other cars here are as well. And yeah, this car is part of the train that they use here. And here they are today, all four of them. You could see behind me is Omaha Zoo Railroad's car 102, named the Golden Spike, which comes after the Transcontinental Railroad's last. It tells you it's the last spike that was driven in 1869 for the Transcontinental Railroad in Promontory, Utah. And the Transcontinental Railroad started here in Omaha. What you see right behind me is car 102, which is the Overland Trail. It's also part of the first 4 cars bought by the Omaha Zoo Railroad. It's been here for a number of years since the opening, and it's been named after the Overland Trail because, yeah, and it's mainly used behind 119 these days. You could see behind me is car 201. They've had this car for a number of years, built by Crown Metal Products. And this car, as you can tell, it's the Union Pacific logo shape. And this car used to have the names of some Nebraska cities like Omaha, Kearney, Grand Island, Ogallala. And that's all I can remember when it used to look like that. And this one trails, and this car rides with the Austrian normally. What you see right behind me is car 104, which is named the Edward Harriman. It's named after Edward Harriman because Edward Harriman had something to do with Union Pacific. And today it's still part of the original set of the Omaha Zoo Railroad and used behind their original steam locomotive as well. You could see behind me is car 101. It's named the Grenville Dodge. This could be my guess because it's been painted over a long time ago. And yeah, this car is part of the original cars used for the Omaha Zoo Railroad here in Omaha, Nebraska. Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below the video screen. Also, if you didn't give my Facebook page a like yet, here's where you can find it, as well as the Instagram page if you didn't follow it yet. And also be sure to get your merch at teesprings.com. Link is in the description box below, along with the Facebook page and Instagram page. And also, remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show, signing out. Until next time, all aboard!